Hi there, welcome back. I'm Shaan from the Velvet Attic. I'm very excited to be here today with you and to show you our new project we're working on. This is a big one, so this is going to require a bit of maneuvering, but I'm very excited about it, and I will also put a full picture up for you in the video, so it's a bit easier for you to see. So what I'm introducing to you today is our French doors, and I was very much inspired by the artist Sharleen Wolfe from Glory Collection and her reverse image transferring, and I thought, well, maybe here in South Africa we can offer something similar but with our chiffon papers. So today this is our French door. I'm going to start it along the camera. Sorry, it does tend to want to autofocus and there's nothing here, but when the picture's done you'll see. So we've got our French door, which is just on, I think, about 1.8 meters long. It goes all the way down to the bottom, and I'm just going to lift it so you can see where it is across there. That's the bottom end. So we've got two panels of the French door, or on the French door, and the beauty of them is that they are made in a way as a frame, which means we can take the back panels out and work on them individually and then put them back in. So it really is a decorative door. It's not a usable door. It's decorative. We have two hanging keyholes to help you if you want to hang them. You can also stand them against your wall as a decor point where you've got some tables or decor that you've set up, or maybe a focal wall could also do. So you can lean them against the wall, you can hang them, you could put two next to each other. I think they're absolutely awesome. I'm really excited and dying to do this. I'm starting it. So you see, now that I've got my technical problem sorted out, you're getting video after video, see? Okay, so it's made out of MDF, superwood MDF, and we've got some routing on the outside, we've got some routing on the inside, and we'll be able to do a lot with this. So I want to go through the three designs we're launching, of which there are different sizes. So let me get on with that. The first one I'm introducing to you in the chiffon is the Honourable Mrs. Graham. Now, the Honourable Mrs. Graham, this particular painting I've cut out of another of the proper full painting, and it was painted in 1777 by Thomas Gainsborough. It's one of the Gainsborough ladies, and she's standing next to a pillar. And I thought, well, I've absolutely love her. She's gorgeous, and she's the most beautiful woman, and very elegant. And I thought, well, this is going to be perfect because we can continue the design all the way down to the bottom, and we can play with embellishments. There is so much we can actually do about it. So the embellishments, as I introduced you in our last video, I'm very excited as well with, and I'm having so much fun with them. So I wanted to show you that is our rose header we'll be using, which is absolutely beautiful. So I'll be using that at the top of the gabling on the French door. So that's going to go basically there. And then I've decided I'm going to use two of the matching footers that go with that header. We have a panel in the middle, as you saw. So obviously I'm going to cut off here, and we're going to have one here and one right at the end on the bottom. So that's the plan with the embellishments. I might add more. This is a project that is just going to happen as I make the video. So yes, I think it's going to be a very interesting project. So this is the Honourable Mrs. Graham, one of the paintings that was done, as I said, in 1777 by Gainsborough. Now, if you didn't want the picture to flow through both panels. We have also done a picture that is purely for the top panel. So let me move that to one side. So you could have her just in the top panel like that, and then in your bottom section you could stencil, you could do texture stencils, you can do shadow stencils. We got the most beautiful Princess Damask pattern that could work there in one of our stencils. There's so much you can actually do there. So any other techniques you want to do, faux techniques, marbling, ragging, whatever, it leaves it open. So you can have just the picture at the top, or you can have the full length one, which is the first one I showed you. Okay, then that's our Honourable Mrs. Graham. The next one to introduce to you is also our Honourable Mrs. Graham, but it was a portrait that was done. Sorry, I want to give you the long one first. It was a portrait that was done of her by Gainsborough. She's really a very pretty lady. And I extended her the artwork because these are all obviously public domain, and I extended her and I thought, oh, she'd be stunning, and you could have this full face going down into her torso and her hands on the bottom panel. So there's the full 150 centimeter of this, and then of course we have the shorter one which you can use in the top panel. Here's the shorter one. So if you just want to do it there, that's how you could have it there. So it just gives you an idea, and we're giving you like sort of options to play with here. I just want to play because I love all this. This is right down my alley. So yes, this was like, I couldn't resist this painting as well. So we went with this. We've got 3 to start with. One of the other ones is actually one that Sharleen Wolfe did as an image transfer. It's also a beautiful one. And it is our Madame Bergeret, and it was painted by Francois Boucher. Francois Boucher. And he painted her in 1766. And she's also just so pretty, isn't she? Absolutely stunning. You can still see all the crackle from the oil paintings, everything. So we've had it printed on the chiffons and to be able to do this. And I also included a short one of her. So here's the short one. Have I got it the right way? Yes. That's the short one. So you could just put it in the top panel like that. That would work. And also just a absolutely beautiful print. So our chiffon papers, as I have told you numerous times, they are just exquisite quality. Even our paintable ones, you can soak them right through. They are not going to tear while they're sopping wet. You can paint them. So I would recommend you go and have a look at our new paintable chiffon papers. We've got some new designs coming, which I think everybody's going to go mad for, and one I'm probably going to do on video, another one. So these are them, but I'm going to actually today, I'm going to use the first Mrs. Graham, the Honourable Mrs. Graham. I have been dying to actually use her, so she will be the one I'm going to feature on this video. So let me just show you her again. And of course, so we've got 3 designs and 6 actually you can choose from, the longs and the shorts, so of each. So in total 6, and we've got some florals and sceneries happening at the moment, which we will add to the range. We also have the French doors, which will be available. This could be a fantastic workshop for stockists to actually run for you. I think you'd love them. And as you know, the chiffons work so beautifully and so easily. So I wanted to just introduce to you what I'm planning, what I'm doing, because what's actually going to happen now is I'm going to start pulling out the back panels, and I'm going to start base coating and prepping this French door. So I will be getting that ready, and my thoughts were that I would start with our Ivoire color. So the thought was, let's start with Ivoire. It's our cream in our vintage chalk paint range. If I put her here, I just want to show you why I chose this color. Because if you look at her, you'll see that that is actually going to work so nicely around, and I'm going to still do other techniques on here. So I thought this as a neutral to start with would be actually stunning, a beautiful combination. So it's Ivoire, and I will be painting the back panels as well as the frame in this color. Okay, so I'm going to be back with you once I'm finished base coating, because you don't need to watch me base coat. Very boring. You can actually wait until I do the exciting bits. So I'll be back with you soon. Hi, so welcome back. I've now base coated everything. I removed the panels on the inside here out. I painted them. Everything's had 2 coats of Ivoire, which is our cream. Just to show you the color again, that's Ivoire there. Okay, part of our Velvetattic vintage chalk paint range. Here, okay, the embellishments I have painted as well, so they're done. So now what I'm actually going to do, which I can't really show you on the video, but just to explain what I'm going to do, is I put the panels back inside the frame, and then I'm going to stand it up the correct way, obviously, and then I'm going to pencil on the inside of my frame here so I can see exactly where the margins are. Because remember, we've got basically a centimeter margin around. That's the give of the frame at the back. So I'm going to pencil in, because when I cut my chiffon paper of the Lady Graham, I have to make sure that I don't obviously shortcut it, because I need to cut now to allow for this here and then the picture to continue on the bottom section, or this bottom section. So that's what I'm going to be doing now, and then I will be back with you with the panels out and showing you how we're going to attach our Lady Graham. Okay, so welcome back. So what I've basically done is, like I said, I have had the frames put back, the inners put back in the frame. I then stood it up and I did pencil marks around, which you can see if I lift it up a bit. See if it focuses. Let's see. There we go. See, there's our pencil marks. That's just going to guide me as well with the cutting. And then what I did, and I think you must keep this in mind, with the bottom panel, make a note on the back of top and bottom. Okay, so that you know this is your top. Either way it should fit in fine, obviously, and this you know it's the top because of the gabling, but either way it should fit in fine. But sometimes I always think it's a good idea, just in case not 100%, and then you know it will fit. Okay, so there's my panels. Now I obviously have that join in between where that panel is on the frame. Now, just to show you what the coloring does with the chiffons and the papers, you can see here when I have it half on, half off, you can see the vibrancy here to the loss of color here, because the black actually draws on the color. So the Ivoire is the perfect color for this picture, and I'll put her on so we can actually see. Let me just move her right up on the gable there. You see how beautiful that coloring is now. It's vibrant, it's rich, it's beautiful. Okay, so yes, some of the gabling at the top you'll see there isn't 100%. The reason being is because you've got that little bit of extra lip on the recess of the frame section. So that's fine, don't stress about it, okay? And wherever it overlaps, we will obviously just cut off these extra bits here. But that's just to give you an idea of where we're going with this. Now, I'm not too worried about the width, okay, because she's pretty much printed on as the size of the width on the 29 centimeter. My concern is my length, because I do need to cater for the bottom margin, because if I was to cut here at the join, remember a centimeter of that is behind the frame, so I actually don't want to lose that, if that makes sense. I want to keep that to move on to the bottom panel. So what I'm going to do is get my metal ruler, and let me just grab this here. I've just got like a white chalk pencil. You can use a normal pencil, whatever works for you. Don't worry too much about it. But what we want to do is just work out where you can see the split in the wood. You can see this, by the way. I'm just not going to zoom in because I have to move everything across. You can see where the two pieces of wood join there. So I'm going to cater for 1 centimeter there with my chalk. And I'm going to cater 1 centimeter here with my chalk. Okay. And then I'm just going to draw... Sorry, I'm just going to line that up. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to line up those two chalk marks, okay, and draw lightly across my chiffon paper. You could do this with a pencil as well. You'll be able to see it. So now I know that I've got that extra centimeter, which will be on my bottom panel, because I don't need it on here. So let's move on with this. Now, you can cut it with a guillotine, you can cut it with scissors. I'm not too stressed about the scissors here. I'll tell you why, because once again, it's going to be in the recess behind the frame. So I don't think you need to worry about being perfect. So I'm not even going to guillotine it across mine. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut neatly. Just have a nice pair of scissors, that's all. Cut neatly across the picture on that line. So even if it's not 100%, you're not going to actually be seeing that. And then now, when I put this section here, as you can see on the top, and I move this one down because there was a cream gap at the bottom here, I can actually do this here now. Sorry, let me move this a sec for you, then it makes more sense. I'm going to move her here, and I'm going to bring this bottom panel into vision here. Okay, so you can see now where I had about that much gap showing. I'm pretty much filling this piece now, which is fine. Here I will be fine. It's going to go slightly up, and that'll be hidden behind the frame. Okay, so that's how you cut and you work out your piece. Just keep in mind where your top is. Obviously make sure your picture's the right way around. There is a front and a back, and it's quite noticeable when you turn it, because it's almost got a whitish fluff look to it. Can I put it that way? Okay, so you do know the right way from the wrong way. Okay, so before I carry on now, I'm going to actually be lightening my pencil marks now around with an eraser, and then I will be back with you shortly. Okay, so welcome back. So I have basically erased my vertical lines here, but I've only lightened my horizontal lines just to guide me, so I make sure that I don't go too short for the lines or too high, and I'm pretty much where I need to be. Like I can see the line there, so I know it's got to go up, to give you an idea. I think you can see the bottom. So at the bottom, that's what I'm left with, and that's more than enough and safe behind the frame. Okay, now sorry, I just see that on there. This tablecloth, or this painting cloth needs a wash now. Okay, so you can just see here how we're going to start working on the top. So what I want to do is I want to apply the chiffon paper to the surface now, and I want to allow it to dry. When it has dried, I'm then going to cut these excess pieces off here on the curve, but I won't do it while it's wet. I'll wait till that has dried. And I'm going to be working through the top because I often recommend this. I know you can paint your sealant or whatever you're using at the bottom, or glues, and then put the paper over, but then it's sticky lift, you know, until you got it right. Whereas if you do it this way, you've actually placed it where you need it, and you'll know it's safe in the position it's in, and you can comfortably just apply it and put it down, and there won't be a problem. Now, I won't be doing any techniques over the chiffon paper, so I'm going to put this straight down with our Velvetattic Vintage Varnish. I'm going to be using the matte. Okay, I am a fond person of matte, but you could use the satin as well at this point if you're not going to be doing anything over her picture, over the chiffon. So I'll be using the matte varnish to apply it. And obviously I'll be working from the top. And by working from the top, you've just got to make sure that you allow the varnish to soak right through to the painted surface, which is also going to absorb, because remember, it's not a sealed painted surface. We've only painted it with the Avoir 2 coats. So we're going to work through it, and we're going to work it a bit so that we make sure the paint absorbs what it needs as well, and we don't lose any adhesion. So having said that, I'm going to work straight from the bottle. I'm just going to give the varnish a bit of a shake. Okay, so I'm going to work straight from the bottle, and for this I'm just going to use a normal synthetic nylon brush. Let's see if that focuses. There we go. This is synthetic nylon, but the hair gets colored. So that's it there. I like to pretty much generally keep the same brush for varnishing, but that's just the rule of thumb. But it's not the end of the world as long as it's a clean brush and you don't let the varnish dry on it. I have dampened it, and that's important. Don't use a dry brush. Got myself a little bit of paper towel as well. It shouldn't be dripping in water. That's the important part. Okay, so I'm just going to sit here because I think you can watch, and then I can actually work this. Okay, so I'm just double checking my positioning here. I think that is good enough there. I'm making sure it's straight so that we're pretty much straight here, because we don't want it going on skew. I'm not too worried on the sides because, like I said, it's literally practically the width of the wood on the frame. Okay, so we're going to go straight into our varnish. Now, what I recommend you do, I've always recommended this with serviettes as well. I recommend this with our silk paper as well, and I recommend it with our chiffons. Work from the center, basically in a circle until you reach the width, and then work down and work down. That way you stretch evenly, especially with serviettes, especially like with the chiffons, they do stretch a little bit. And you do want it to stretch evenly. It's not going to crease and bubble. You're going to really have to try and make that happen. I think that is the beauty of these and our chiffon papers, is that they don't bubble, they don't crease, they don't tear unless you really, really, really yank on them and try your best to tear it. Okay, so I want to start here in the center. I'm just making sure I pull it. Yes, so if I start in the center here, I should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and bring my bottle closer. Just hold it with my hand. I start there in the middle and I make a cross. That soaks through, and it needs to soak through. Okay, now our varnishes, as I've said in previous videos, I have personally used for well over 20 years. It's a water-based polyurethane, semi-heat resistant, scuff resistant, a lot more durable than your average craft varnish. And I've used them on my own personal canvases for a very long time, and my canvases are still perfect. Okay, so you can see I'm starting to pull outwards. From the center, I'm pulling outwards. You'll see it sucking through or absorbing through the paper. You can actually see it. Let me see if I zoom you in. Maybe you'll see that a little better. Yes, you see there. You can actually see there. Now, even though it goes a little bit transparent now, when it dries, obviously it's going to dry clear, and then all that color comes back. Varnish tends to actually bring out the color a little bit more. So I'm going around in a circle, and I'm making sure that I pull in a little bit of pressure. You don't have to be hectic, but don't do this with Hogs hair brushes or hardware brushes, because you're just going to be a bit harsh with it. And if it's too wet and you overwork it and it's a very hard brush, yes, you might damage it, the paper. Okay, so I'm just going around in a circle, as you can see. And everywhere I put the varnish, you can see it's going transparent, so you can actually see as I'm working. And it doesn't matter if more varnish adds here, that's fine. I'm just making sure, obviously through experience, I know that I've got enough there. If you're not sure at any time, come back and just apply another. I do recommend later on that we put another coat on as a protection coat for a little bit of, protection of the paper and the print. But you know what? That coat's fine. You don't even need to put more than that afterwards. So one to it here, maybe one afterwards. If it's something that you might be, I don't know, could be if you're putting it on something and it's something that's going to be used quite a bit and needs a bit more strength, and add another couple of coats and allow each coat to dry properly. Rule of thumb, try not to do more than 4 coats in a 24-hour period, otherwise you could end up with milky layers, especially cold weather like we're having right now. It's been very cold, so I wouldn't recommend doing more than your 4 and allowing each coat to dry. Okay. Alright, so as you can see, I'm going to carry on with that. I'll probably speed the video up at this point. Okay, so I'm still applying our Lady Graham. Basically I've gone round until I've reached the edges here, which you have to really make sure those edges are done. Okay, you can even come back later and do an extra coat around. I'm now going to move in one direction here, up, and then I'll move down because I've basically reached the width now. So, but I'm still working in the center area, so I'm going to work up on her face here, which as we go, like I said to you, will look transparent, but once it dries and starts to dry, it will have the full color back. Now I'm going to be applying these obviously and then putting them aside to dry, and while they are drying, I'm then going to start working on my embellishments and my frame. I want to do a glazing technique on there. To start with, I'll obviously judge it as I go if I want to add anything else, but with what I've got, I want to start with those. But let's add this and get everything on so that we can allow it to start drying, because in this cold weather it's going to take a little bit longer. But personally, I wouldn't start hair drying and heat gunning and to speed it up. Maybe from a distance and maybe cold air, but I wouldn't start using hot airs and hair dryers and that too close or anything like that. I'm dripping nicely on my tablecloth. On my painting cloth. Was a tablecloth, now painting cloth. So you can just see I work up and then I sort of pull outwards to the sides and I make sure my sides are down, and I can see like here I haven't absorbed enough through, and I will obviously pick up more and then make sure. Now when I painted the back panels, I only did the one side. It's the same as my frame. I will finish it off. I do believe in finishing pieces off, so their backs will get painted. I didn't worry about the sides because it'll be in the frame. You're not going to see that of this part of the panels. So I didn't worry about putting paint there. I basically, everything had 2 coats of our Ivoire. The first coat I allowed it to dry, and then a second coat for solid coverage. So you can see that color just helps the colors on this design pop off. It doesn't always have to be a white behind the picture. You can use off-whites like I used a cream, which just complements the skin tone of her and some of her dress, and that's why I chose that. If you've got something like our By Royal Appointment bunny, you will see that you could put a lovely beige behind it, because the design is literally beiges and browns. Even this color would work behind that very nicely, but you can go as far as even using our Il Trovatore fawn color, the brown. That would look lovely. I've just always loved this painting. It makes my heart very happy to be making her actually on something. And you really got to admire these artists' talents from years gone by. They are so talented. They were so talented. Okay, so I'll probably speed this part up now again, and I'll get that down so we get this video a little shorter. Okay, so I'm just going to bring it back here because I just want to explain here at the top you know, with the gabling. Part of it is in the frame, in the recess of the frame section of the door. That's why I'm leaving that bit at the top. What I'm making very sure of is that I definitely have it stuck to the end where the gabling is. That is very important, because like I said to you, as soon as it dries, I will just cut that off, and then I'll double check my edges are still down on that side again. We want everything to stick down properly here, also for longevity and durability and everything. So don't bend it over the edge, you don't need to do that. And it doesn't matter if you get some varnish there. If you're planning on doing something else on top of your picture, maybe more stenciling or something like that, you can actually put this down with our Velvetattic Vintage paper glue. That glue works beautifully. It has a matte finish as well. So what happens is that it gives you tooth still to do stuff like stenciling or painting over or things like that. So I'm just making sure all my edges here have soaked through and are down. Okay, so I've finished this half. I'm now going to go and continue with the bottom half here. Actually going to move her up a bit now. Now you can see the color starting to come back here. I can still feel it's wet. If I was to lift this, you'll see up to where I've gotten. There's a wet. So we're going to continue down there, and that I think is also the other beauty of the chiffon papers. If you do happen to apply it a bit skew, you can lift it and reposition. Okay, so we've got the top panel done now. I've applied one coat of our matte varnish to adhere her down with it over the top, and obviously when I have trimmed off the excess there, I will apply another coat for extra durability in that and protection of the paper. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move her one side. I'll actually push her back a bit and then down, and we're going to work on the smaller panel I'm just going to move her over there a bit. I'm going to put, this is our bottom panel. I've double checked again that the back is the top. Like I said before, I marked it. I think that's important. I'm doing exactly what I did before, is I'm going to position it while it's still dry where I would like to have it. I've got a little bit of excess over the end, but I can trim that off, so I'm not too worried there. But that'll be fine. Straighten it up. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to start in the middle, and then I'm going to go around in a circle. So I come to the center and I'm going to make a cross, just to hold it there. And then from there I'll start working outwards in a circle. Okay, so welcome back. I have now finished applying the bottom panel. So the next thing to do is to move these aside and allow them to dry properly. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to bring our embellishments in and we're going to start on those. Okay, so I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, so welcome back again. I have put our panels aside to dry, and I'd like to start on some of the glazing techniques I want to do on, or technique I want to do on the embellishments. I am going to be glazing the frame as well, but I prefer to glaze my embellishments beforehand and then adhere them to the frames or the surfaces. So this is why you'll see I'm doing it this way. You'll also see when I do the frame with the glazing why I like to add the embellishments afterwards, because I find you can actually run and create a grain quite beautifully across your frame there if you don't have to stop and start because of the embellishments. So we're going to move on to the glazing part here. Now we sell our VelvetAttic vintage glazing medium. That's there. Oh, sorry, let me get it in line for you. Now the glazing medium does tend to separate on the shelf. Don't stress, that's very much a normal thing. Okay. You obviously will shake it up really well before you mix your glaze, and then while you're working you need to stir your glaze up, and especially if you're going to be doing big long pieces or furnitures or walls or anything like that, you'll have to keep mixing in that, stirring it up and shaking it up in that. And the color I'm going to be using is our VelvetAttic Vintage Chalk Paint Art Déco Dark Brown. You would have seen me use this in nearly every video I use. I always tell you the same thing. It is a beautiful, cool, raw umber kind of color. So there isn't lots of red pigment in it like burnt umbers would be. So it's just off the warm tone. You can always add red if you wanted a bit warmer. But I like to use this. I use it a lot with my embellishments and things like that. So when you're mixing your embellishments, when you're mixing your glazing medium, this is a color I use a lot. So therefore I would mix a whole bottle of it, which I did. This is my bottle. It's very messy. Ignore that, please. It's even got our old label on, and there's still in here. It doesn't go off. I don't add water. If you do add, then it would be distilled water. So the rule of thumb is that for the amount of glazing medium you're using, you add 10% paint to start with. Okay, so this is a 250 ml bottle. I would add 25 ml of the Art Déco Brown in here, shake it all up, mix it, test it on a surface. If it is still too transparent, the brown, and you wanted a little bit more stronger color there, then you can add a little bit of paint. To be honest with you, I don't even mix it. I eyeball it now. So you don't have to be 100%, but you do need to test that you're happy with the mix you got. And like I say, it keeps for a very long time. I've still got some left yet. Might not be enough to finish our frame, in which case I might just mix a bit more in, but you'll see it's a lot more runny. I don't know if you can see that. It's a lot more runny than our paint. So what happens is the glazing medium, if you were to add water to the Art Deco and wash it over here, and dilute the Art Deco, you would end up with what we call a very insipid color, where you have lost any vibrancy of the color. Now, with the glazing media, that doesn't happen. So what happens is you get a diluted color, but the color is still vibrant. And it also has a retarder in it. Now, when we say retarder, it means that you have a longer working time before it dries out. So it's important, especially when you're doing big areas, because you'll have more time to actually work those areas in sections. So I'm going to start with this. I have shaken up my bottle of my glazing medium, which I'm going to work straight from. Just using a cheap synthetic nylon brush, just to paint on with. What I have got handy here is just some rags, and you want to try and use rags that maybe don't have, aren't fluffy and won't leave any kind of fluff or threads or residue onto the surface. So I'm going to use these, which is basically almost like a cotton. T-shirt material, of course, would work perfectly, but things like mutton cloth wouldn't, and that. So I'll be using this. I'll be using it dry. If you find that maybe you're losing control while you're glazing and you don't have enough time, keep a damp one handy, because anything with the water on will clear it off again, and you can start again with it. So the water will be activated for a while before it's actually had time to properly cure and dry. So I'm going to put these aside here, and I'm going to start with the big one. This is going at the top of our gabled door. It's had our Revoir base coating. I actually did the base coating yesterday, so it has had overnight to dry. The reason I also did that was because of the excessively cold weather. I just wanted to give everything a little bit more curing time, because it was dry to the touch, but it was cold, which tells me it's not completely dry. So I'm going to zoom in so you can try and see what I'm doing closer. I think that'll work better. There we go. And we're going to work in sections. So let's take an edge here where I'm going to start here now. Now my brush is damp. It is not sopping wet and dripping. It's just damp. Okay, that's important once again. My base coating was taken all the way around to the edges and even a little bit over, so that there's nowhere when I glue it down that there's going to be white showing from the embellishment, from the resin. So this is one of the roses I told you about from our range. We have a beautiful range of embellishments, high quality resin, the best you could actually make embellishments with, and they are just beautiful. Now this embellishment, what I really like about it is I'm not one for perfection. Okay, you're painting by hand. When I glaze, I like interest and character on my pieces. So for me, you're going to see this, that it's a little bit rougher and not so beautifully smooth, and that is ideal for what I want. So I'm going to start you on the sides, and what you do, I'm sorry, I just see I've got a hair there. What you're going to do, just obviously hold it, is you're going to take some of the glaze and you're going to paint it onto your embellishment. Now it's important you push it into all the recessed areas. Okay, make sure you get right up in the veins of the leaves, down the sides of the leaves. Sorry, I have to put it for me to see, but I'm going to try and make a note that you guys can see what I'm doing. And I work in a section. I don't try and thin it out, obviously, on that leaf. I just leave it as it is. And we'll move on to this section because we've got enough time. With the weather's cooler, that's number one. It even gives us more working time. And the retarder in the medium also gives us working time. So we can actually do a whole section, which I'd like to do, all the way up here. I want to catch in on those buds there. And make sure it gets into all the crevices there. You can use a Filbert brush as well for this, or a flat. I like the Filbert. It just helps me get into all the creases and that. But flats work as well. And I make sure that all these short edges where I've painted, where there could be, have been white showing when I glue it, I'll make sure I get in all these areas here. Okay. Now what I do find is sometimes the more smooth your embellishment, you would need to then sit and let it sit for a while before you start the wiping process. But when it's got texture and character like this embellishment and the footers of this embellishment, then I won't leave it as long. And I think you'll see as well how nice it is that even if you take off your glaze and you think, oh, I took off too much, you can just dab some right back on there and do it again. So there is no messing up the process. If you put too much on, remember, water, damp rag, keep it handy, and even use a brush with water to reactivate it and wipe the excess off. You cannot mess up this process. And if you really, really, really don't like what it does when it dries, just rebase coat your piece. Okay, I also wouldn't stop halfway through a leaf. I would make sure I complete that leaf. So I'm going to take these stems all the way up to these leaves here, and that's where I'm going to stop now. This is my point. So if I hold it up to you, and I'm just going to try, I'm just going to try and turn it so you can see everything has been covered all the way down to the edge. Okay, so let's do a little test. Let's see how this actually looks. So I've taken my cloth or my rag, and I will basically sort of fold it up into a little spongy fold that I can work with, something like that. Okay, and starting on the edges, I'll start dabbing and wiping a bit. If it comes off too easily, I'll probably dab and pat and then wipe, but like this I can see it's already taking, so I'm just going to lightly wipe. And what's going to happen is this cloth is going to become my dirty cloth. It's going to be the one that I take the excess off with, which is perfect, and I'm going to use that continuously. So I'm just wiping, but obviously the veins run this way, if you can see. Okay, so I don't want to run in the veins and then take all that brown that's sitting deep in there out. And worst case scenario, if I really, really do, I can come back and I can dab the brown back in there and I can go again. The beauty of having your own glazing medium is that out of our range of 79 colors and our metallics, 13 of them and 8 pearlescents, you can mix that amount of glazing color. So any color you need for your surface, you can do that. And if you're working with gray tones, you can mix your glaze with our marquee charcoal or La Noblesse dark gray. So we don't pre-mix because you can mix whatever you want. Okay, I work over my roses a bit there because I don't really want the brown coming out of them. I'm just going to turn it. I just hope I'm not taking it out of the camera view. So this is the part where you're taking off the excess. Now I see a part there I didn't paint any on, so I'm just going to make sure I get that on there. And you can do this in between. You don't have to, it's not ruined if you haven't. And I'm just going to wipe in there gently. You can use your nail a bit if you need to just get in and there's still too much in some of the recessed areas. I can see I missed a little patch down the side here. It's funny because as you actually turn, you spot all these places that you've missed. That's what happens in ceramics a lot of the time. So just go in there, dab some white off. Once I've got what I want off, I just want to turn it because this part you can see here at the back. Okay, I just want to make sure I get some of the brown in there, and then I'm just going to pat that off. So I'm antiquing basically. This is what I'm doing here. I'm antiquing using a glazing technique, using our glazing medium with our Art Deco dark brown vintage chalk paint color. Okay, so this is where I am. I'm just going to lift this up. I hope you can see. Sorry. You can see there. So it's quite strong, the brown. But you see, this is where you can look at things and judge them, because let's say I felt the tops of my leaves need a little bit less. You could take a piece of clean cloth and very lightly just buff across the top with a clean cloth, and you can take all that excess brown that's on the high areas off. So the dirty cloth removes the excess, and you use a clean cloth to actually buff it a bit and clean it a bit. So let me show you there. You can see the difference now, which is actually what I'm aiming for. Okay, so I'm going to continue to antique this piece with my glaze. Welcome back. I have finished the first piece, the header rose. That'll be going at the top of our frame. Now I've gone all over with the glaze. I've wiped the excess off. It is still wet. I'm going to lift it for you to see. The brown is still wet, as you can see the glaze inside there. So this is going to be put aside to dry, because it needs to dry properly now. And I'm going to move on now. I wanted to leave quite a lot of brown and antiquing into the crevices and deep areas of the design, so that you could get the full effect of it. I did go over with my clean cloth, as I explained earlier. I just wrapped it around my finger, okay, with a clean piece, and then I very lightly, all the high areas I sort of buff across them, because they would be the lighter, so that's where I would want more off. If at this point you feel, sure, you know, you want quite a lot off, or it's not enough, use a damp cloth, and you'll take off even more. So this is going to be put aside now to dry. I've got two of the footers, matching footers to that header, which I'll be using in the center part of the frame and the bottom. I'll be putting them there. So I'm going to glaze those quickly, and then I'll be back again with you shortly. Okay, so welcome back again. I have now finished glazing my 3 embellishments that I was planning on using on my door, my French door. So they're going to need to be put aside to dry properly, because a lot of the recessed areas are still very wet. And then I'm going to just clear up a bit here, make some space so we can start on the door, the actual frame part of the door, because that's what I want to do next. So I'm going to go and put these somewhere to dry safely, and I will get the frame door back and we will start on that. Okay, be with you shortly. Right, I know there's lots of going backwards and forwards, but it's just the way I have to do this project. So welcome back again. I've just finished, obviously I showed you, I glazed the embellishments. They're drying beautifully. I now want to start glazing the door frame. So I'm following the same principle as before. where I'm going to use my mixed glaze. I might still have enough left in this container. If not, I will just remix a bit more. But let's see how we go. And I'm just going to show you how I'm going to glaze it, because I want to sort of work a section down. So I'm probably going to work in a section, and I want to run long strokes down as if it was a grain effect. This I will run across. So my crossbars I will do horizontal when I pull, and then my grains down will be down the length of the frame. So having said that, I'm just going to take a bigger brush now, a synthetic, and I'm going to work from the bottle. Okay, and I'm going to basically just work this section first. Now obviously I haven't sealed the ivoire, the paint, so what you need to take into consideration is that it will absorb this glaze. So don't do too big an area. If you find you can't control it, put a coat of varnish on. You can use the satin as well, and then it'll give you a little bit more playtime as well again. Okay, so I want to work with this section. I'm not too stressed about my routed edges yet. I'm going to come back to them. So there, I've painted it on. I'm not going to wait very long. I still have my dirty cloth, which I am going to be using. Okay, get it the way I want it. Okay, this is going to be to take the excess off, so it's going to be my dirty cloth. Okay, and I'm going to be working across. I'm not too worried if it messes here, because remember I said a little bit of water or damp rag, I can clean up what I need to. So the idea is to pull along the grain. It's going to lift off the excess, which is fine. I'm then going to fold over, take another side. I just want to work with it smooth, and I'm just going to wipe that excess. I'm just getting the excess off. Okay, once I've got my excess off, well, I lost my clean rag. No, I'm joking, I've got it here. I'm going to take the one I was using, the clean rag, and I'm just going to smooth that. Now my whole thing is I don't want this part very heavy. The reason I don't want it heavy is that when I put the embellishments down, I want them more to pop off of the surface, and at the same time I don't want to detract from my center picture of Lady Graham. So this is where I am now. Just to give you a little hint here, just have a brush with some water, because here we're going to run the other way, and just put the water on your edge there like that, because it activates the glaze, and then just wipe with your cloth, because I'm not going to get to this side yet, so I need to keep it neat there. I'm working this side, so actually that will be fine left as it is if need be, but there we go. Okay, so I'm going to continue down this panel here. I'm going to do it with you while I'm at it, and I'm just going to show you. I'm actually just going to spread it out, the glaze, backwards and forwards. The glaze has to basically touch everywhere. It's like the embellishment. You need to get it everywhere, and spread it out. It doesn't have to be thick because we're taking it off, remember, quite a bit. If you want it stronger, then you can put it on thicker, or do it like I've done it. Allow it to dry properly. Obviously that'll have to be a good, I would say in this cold weather, a good 6 to 8 hours, or overnight would be better. And then come back and do another coat if you really want to. So here I just want to get it to the edges. I'm not worried if I actually mess on my edge at the moment, because my edges will be a bit darker. I'm working the edges I'm going to glaze and I'm going to judge when I put the picture back in what I'm actually going to do. If I'm going to leave them glazed or actually end up painting in the routing, but for now I'm going to glaze it so that I can look at it and decide from there what I want to do. Okay, so I just want to get past, well, just up to this sort of stage here will be fine actually, because I want to go across again. So let's work with that. Let's take our very dirty cloth again and let's start wiping down the length. If it extends a bit further, so be it. It's not the end of the world. But we want to take some of that excess off again. Okay. Going to also once again on this cloth, because this is my dirty cloth for all the excess that comes off, just going to wipe that again. And obviously I'm going to make sure my ends, I don't want to get anything that leaves a straight line at the end there. Okay, here we go. And I now take my clean cloth, and this is where I'm going to now, this is my finishing, in other words, of what it's going to look like. See, there are, where was it? No, it's gone. No, that's fine. So just nice long movements just to smooth it out. See, it just creates a little bit of interest, if I can put it that way. I'm going to try and lift that a bit, or zoom in a bit and then lift. So let me lift this side a little bit. Now I hope you can see that. I'm going to zoom in a bit more. So you can see the effect there on the flat. Okay, so it's quite a light glaze that I'm doing across. I'm not changing the color too much, and I think the Voir just gives it a lovely finish at the end of the day underneath. So let me go on to let's do this. Okay, so moving down to this end, and then I'm going to carry on the same throughout. Hi, so welcome back. I finished glazing the frame of the door. What I actually did on the inner sides and the outer routed edges is I just painted some of the glaze on. I didn't really need to wipe it off, just painted on with a brush and it was fine. These are still drying, the embellishments. I'm going to lower it down so you can just see. I haven't attached them yet, they're still loose. So you can see there, and then obviously I can't bring the other one up, but this one's down at the bottom as well. I've put the panels in, okay. What I did is I just took a pair of small embroidery scissors and just basically snipped around the edges where they overlapped, and then I have put it back into my frame, and that's where I'm going to keep them for now. This, I just need all the embellishments obviously to dry, and it's cold weather, so it's going to take some time. And then I want to actually, once the glazing has dried on the frame, I'm going to then do a floating of dark umber, or the Art Déco, which is our dark brown umber color, along the outer edges here, as well as on the inner edges here. So it'll create a little bit more of a pulling together of the design of the door. So it'll sort of bring it in and show where the end is, because at the moment this is sort of, you don't see the end and it doesn't sort of, where does it end, in other words. If I shadow in here, then I should have a nice effect obviously, and around here of the dark brown, and it's almost a framing antiquing effect. And I'll do that with a big angle shader and the straight Art Deco out the bottle. So I will come back to you as soon as everything has dried, because if I was to float now with water, this would all activate and start moving. So we need to let this dry properly. And then I will be back with you again as soon as it's dry, and we'll do some of the finishing touches and what's really going to bring it all to life again. Okay, so I'll be back with you soon. Thanks. Hi, okay, so welcome back. I've basically now allowed all my glazed items or pieces where I've actually glazed to dry properly. So the frame of the door is totally 100% dried and cured, so that when I start floating and using water, it's not going to activate it. I've also made sure that these are all completely dry now, as you can see. So we'll be working on them as well. I'm actually going to move those away for now. What I want to do now is I'd like to do some shading around the outside of the inner edge and along the outside edge, just to create a bit of depth, anchoring, antiquing basically. What I've done is I've put out some of our Art Deco, which is our Velvetatic vintage chalk paint. That's the color I mixed into the glaze when I glazed this. So this is the paint straight out of the bottle, no glaze mixed here. And I'm going to use that straight. I've got a paper towel to blot on. Okay, and I'm going to be using an angle shader. You can see it's like a flat brush. It's just angled on the edge. So this is a 3/4 inch I'm going to be using because I need quite a big size. I'm not going to go and, you know, float a shadow on here with a tiny 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch or 1/2 inch. I really, you know, I could also use a 1 inch, but I am doing this side as well. So that's why I've opted for the 3/4 inch. So what I'll do is I dampen my brush, I tap it on my paper towel. Now the long side of the angle shader, okay, that's this side here. You can see if I hold it straight. That is your long side. So the long side we refer to as the toe, and the short side we refer to as the heel. And when I load the paint on, I'll be loading it onto the toe, which is the long side. Okay. And then I'll be blending it, but you'll see what I do on the palette now. And I'm just, like I said, going to use water, so I'm going to pick up a blob of paint. And then on my paper palette, I'm just going to work it backwards and forwards, just blending it. So what I'm actually creating is, on my brush, it's going to work from a strong dark brown, and when it gets to the heel section of my brush, it's going to be transparent. So I don't want any color on the heel of my brush, otherwise then you need to rinse your brush off and start again. If your brush starts splitting, I'll force one here, starts doing this sort of thing, okay, you know your brush is too dry. So just when you load or when you wet it again, just put the tip into water, pat it on your towel, and then carry on. Like so. You can come back, you can blend with what's on there, or you can get more if you want. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure I've loaded my brush properly, because I want to work this whole section if I can in one go rather than stopping and starting. And so I'm going to make sure everything's loaded the way it should be. To help you, you can also put a bit of water on the surface to start with. So I'm going to basically be working, let's start over this end. Sorry, I'm going to sit here a sec. I'm going to be starting over here. I'm going to put the toe against the edge there. Okay. And then I just want to soften as well. So I'm going to then walk the paint across. I come back, I soften, and I keep walking And you can just use the edge of your wood as a guide here. And then pull softly so you don't see all the little stop-starts. And come back. And I'm going to walk it again. And just soften as I come back. Obviously I touch lightly when I do the softening part. So you can see I'm building up some antiquing around the edge, which will help with framing her, the effect of that she's surrounded instead of sort of behind there. It also offsets the routing in that. I'm going to carry on again, so I'm going to go all the way to the end there. Now you just got to be careful with your stopping in that because you don't want any harsh lines to show. Okay, so anywhere you need to, just come back and pull softly across, and then that'll be it for now. I'll probably come back and give a second coat again when it's dry, just to enhance it some more. So I'm just going to do the bottom section here, and then I'm going to start with all my outside edges. Okay, so I'll be back with you as soon as I'm done with those. Okay, so welcome back again. I've shaded around the edges. So I will actually try and zoom in a bit so you can see. And perhaps I can move that. So you can see I've shaded this edge and this edge. Now, what's bugging me, remember this is a piece in action, okay? Is that I actually think I need to paint the edges in my dark brown straight as is, the Art Deco. So I am going to paint the outer edges and then take these panels out, and I'm going to paint the inner edges in the dark brown. I think that will just finish off the shading on the side. So that'll be the next step, and then as soon as I'm done with that, I'll be back with you again. Okay, so welcome back again. Now, I have gone and painted 2 coats of Art Deco brown on the outer and the inner edge. I'm just going to lift it a little bit here for you so you can actually see what I've done. You can see there 2 coats, okay, and I've done it on the inner, you can see over here. Okay, so I think that made the world of difference on the frame. Number one, it complemented our glazing we'd done, and then of course it complemented the shading I did. So it sort of finished off the shading on the edge, and I think it's given a framing effect and just pulled everything together. So the next step now would be to attach our embellishments, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue them onto their spots that they need to be. For this, I'm actually just going to use our Velvetattic Vintage Craft Glue. It's a craft glue I've used for a long time, non-yellowing. It dries clear and it is durable. It holds embellishments nicely. So I'm going to be attaching them on there. I'll be putting some on the back, spreading it out with my finger or a card, whatever works for you, or a glue spreader, and then obviously lining it up and putting them down to dry. So I will be doing that next, and then I will be back again for the next step. Okay, so welcome back again. I finished gluing on the embellishments onto our French door. I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. I just need to try and line it up with the camera, and then I can zoom in for you. So they're all glued on with our Velvetattic Vintage Glue, and I'm just going to zoom it in a bit here for you. I want to dry brush a little bit of gold just to enhance on the embellishments, but only really on the high areas. So I'm going to be using our Velvetattic metallic paint, Luster d'Or, our gold luster. It is a beautiful, yellow gold. You can see it's absolutely stunning. Okay, so I want to use that, and I'm going to be using a paper towel as well. My palette. I'm going to get some paint out. I'm using the round Hogs hair. I'm using a round Hogs hair bristle brush. Remember, I explained the round in my last video on dry brushing. You can see it there, I've put some gold on. I use the brush dry. That's very important. So I'm going to take my palette and I'm going to work it really well, the first loading especially, because I want to get it into all the hairs. I'm going to work it very well into my hairs of the bristles on my brush. This is a number 10 round Hogs hair. When you first get them, I know they're like the stencil brushes, the hairs fall out, and they still do after use. They're cheap brushes, they're that for a reason, because you're going to wear them down and you can replace them. So I've just really worked it in. Into the hairs there. So what I do now is I'm going to use my paper towel and I am going to work the excess off of the paper towel. Okay, I am then going to test it on my hand, make sure it's not coming off wet, it's light. If it's wet, more off. Okay, so the idea here is obviously to catch all the high areas with the gold, just to give it a little bit more, I would say, royalty and elegance to the picture we used of the chiffon paper. So I want to dust across very lightly. I hope you can see that. I'm actually going to zoom in on that middle section a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to dust backwards and forwards. Don't go one direction, go two directions. Just to catch there. You can see the difference it's made there. I also want to catch the bottom turn up there. I'd like to catch across my rows, but I don't want to push it into recessed areas, if I can put it that way. That I don't want to do. This leaf comes over nicely here. I'd like to catch a bit on that leaf, on the high areas there. This one on the high areas. So I'm not going to try and push into anything. I put a little less there. I just work carefully, so I just make sure I don't actually get any on the frame itself. So I'm using a number 10, that's ample for this. If you find it's a little bit tricky and you're battling a bit, that is fine too. Just go and maybe use a number 8. But don't go smaller than that. Otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a very hard dry brush, which you don't want. Alright, so I just catch these little bit of scrolls or stem. I'm very light. I'm not trying to cover. I don't want to lose my antiquing. I don't want to lose my colouring. These tips of the shell effect here, I'd like to catch some on there. So everything's just going to get a little bit, but it's not going to be hectic. I don't want to overdo it. And you can see it's a lovely gold, because once you apply it, it's not actually a harsh gold, if I can put it that way. A little bit across the top of the stems, and maybe just a light dust across the grain. You see, I think that looks absolutely beautiful there. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can just see where I've gone on that. You see, I think that's going to work too beautifully. So I'm going to slide up and then obviously do the others. Okay, so I went and I completed the bottom one. What I do think I want to do, considering it's a little bit gold, I don't want to overdo it, obviously. So I've got to make sure, and you would have to the same, make sure your brush is actually very dry. Okay, remember this technique we're doing is called dry brushing, so it must be dry. And I want to just catch a little bit on my edges, coming round very subtly. I don't want to overdo this because I don't want to lose my brown. Okay, I'm just catching it as I go. It'll just be a hint. And it's not actually on the routing, it's actually just on the sharp edge that I'm catching the brush. And I don't have to be perfect. I just want to catch little bits, just to accent the gold a bit. Can be quite loose with this. And if a little bit goes on the bit of routing, that's also not the end of the world. We've got this old world look we're doing. And I think I'll zoom it in. I'm going to zoom it in and I'm going to show you. Along here. So if you can just see along there on this edge, I've just caught it there a little bit, but I'm not going to do it actually on the outer edge. I think just the inner edge, just around her is my aim. So I'm just going to do the same here. And I'll be back with you now. I'm just going to finish the bottom section. Right, so welcome back. I've finished that. And I'm actually finished with this door. The last thing I need to do now is obviously seal it with our vintage varnish. And I am going to use the matte. I love a matte finish. But you have the option of matte, satin or gloss. You could do matte on the inside where the chiffon paper is, to keep that canvasy feel and look that you get with this. And you could put a satin on the outside, so you could use either or a gloss. It's totally up to you and what your preference is. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching my videos. I really do appreciate it, and I must tell you I have lots of fun doing these. I think it's one of the few times I get to paint, so it's very enjoyable for me. So what's going to happen is we have these doors available to purchase. We have the prints available to purchase, as I showed in the beginning of the video. You can get the full length 150 centimeter that you can then put in both inner panels, or you can just purchase the full image for the top panel. We've got 3 designs we are launching with. We've got more on the way, which we will keep you posted with. I think this is going to be an outstanding workshop as well. It's just one of those really stunning ones. It's a decorative door, remember. The inner panels come out like a frame would. So the inner comes out of the frame of the door. There are 2 hanging keyholes at the top if you wish to hang your decorative door, French door, or you could actually just lean it against a wall. I will be taking lots of pictures for you. I'll take some close-ups as well, and I will put them in the video to show you. The embellishments are available from us. We have the header and the footers available, made out of our very high quality resin that we use. So the quality really is exceptional, and I just think this combination with this picture of Honourable Mrs. Graham, painted by Thomas Gainsborough, just seemed to work. It's pulled out that nobility, it's pulled out her elegance. It's a beautiful painting. It's one of my favorites personally. I loved her portrait too, which is available as the head and shoulders. That can be used also across both panels or individually. And of course, the beautiful Bergeret, Madame Bergeret, painted by Francois Boucher. And of course, that particular picture was featured on Sharleen Wolfe from the Glory Collections page. She did a reverse image transfer of it on a French door, decorative French door. That is where my inspiration has come from. Follow her page, she's phenomenal. Does beautiful work. Follow her group as well. Very, very good at reverse image transferring. We do have a medium that is fantastic for that process, which is available. You can purchase it from our Stockists. You will be able to purchase these doors and the prints and the embellishments and the paints and everything you need from our Stockists. If we don't have a Stockist in your area, you're welcome to contact us directly, or perhaps ask your local craft shop. Maybe they can stock some of our products for you or order them in for you. We're very easygoing on supplying the shops. We don't do contracts and minimums and set pricing, etc. So, they can purchase the items you need without actually worrying about huge startup fees. So that's the exciting part too. And yes, I'd love to hear back from you. I'd love to hear your feedback. And I'd like to thank you very much again for watching my videos and this video, of course. And I hope to see you very soon with the next video, next exciting thing I'm busy with. Always got 5 projects going at the same time that we're going to do. And then, yes, leave me a comment. Let me know. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. We have a group as well. And I will put a full-length picture, obviously, and close-ups of this for you, so you can see the whole thing done. It's a bit tricky with the camera on the table, so we've raised it as high as we could with the tripod, and at least you could see some of what I was doing in that. But yes, any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm more than willing and happy to help you with that. So until next time, when I see you guys again, happy painting, happy creating, look after yourselves and stay safe. Till next time, goodbye.